Today I have a very special guest. He is a familiar face that you've seen across multiple eras in WWE. He is a former WWE official, the one, the only, Mr. Jimmy Corderas. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Brian, I am doing fantastic. Thank you very much for asking. How you doing?
I am good, and we have a mutual friend. I reached out to him last night, and Jason Ayers, and he said you are one of the most finest that is walking this earth, and you are an incredible mentor, and said this interview should be fun.
Oh my goodness, I love Jason. Well, I thank him for the nice, kind words. That really does mean a lot. Because I remember Jason from many, many years ago, when it was still FCW,
Mhm.
and they used to hold tryouts down there, and they sent me down to evaluate. There was a bunch of referees that were trying out, and he was pretty much at the top of my list for guys. I'm saying, you know, listen, look, obviously he's not TV ready, but
Mhm.
this guy is very respectful. He's very coachable. He was willing to learn, and he listens.
Mhm.
And he seems like a good dude. He seems like a good person, and that's important too. People don't realize that being a good person in the business also helps, especially when you're a referee, because if you are uber talented as a professional wrestler and you can draw money, sometimes you can get away with being a little bit of a curmudgeon.
What made you get into professional wrestling? What made you pursue this industry all those years ago?
I was a fan since I was a kid. I mean, like growing up here in Toronto, especially, we were blessed to have so much wrestling on television on weekends,
Mhm.
especially on Saturdays. I mean, all day long up here we had Maple Leaf Wrestling, which was the Tunney's President Jack Tunney. He became
Mhm.
later. After his uncle Frank passed away, he took over the promotion here, but they would have their television show on in the early afternoon. Then we'd have the Buffalo affiliate stations having Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling on and WWF Wrestling on a different affiliate station. Then we'd get Calgary Stampede Wrestling from some other, you know, Barrie, Ontario.
Mhm.
This was before when if you turned your antenna the right way, you can catch a whole bunch of different channels. And for us, that's what it was. And there was just so much wrestling on all day long, and I loved it. And of
Mhm.
course, being here in Toronto, Saturdays were all day wrestling, and then at night it was hockey night in Canada, and my Toronto Maple Leafs. Who and my dad and I would sit and watch the Maple Leafs. But then after the hockey was over at like 10:30 p.m. at night, he let me stay up late because All Star Wrestling from Vancouver was on. So I'm like, you know, all day long Saturday, my mom would be go out and play. I'm saying no, wrestling's on. I'm not going anywhere. You know?
So, how hard was it to get into professional wrestling back then, especially for being a referee? And how did you know that that was what you wanted to pursue within wrestling?
I didn't know that's what I wanted to pursue. I just knew I loved watching it. I loved the business, and I wanted to be a part of it in some form or fashion. I just don't know how I fit in.
Mhm.
So what I was doing was up here in Toronto, they would run shows at Maple Leaf Gardens. For those who don't know, that's like Madison Square Garden North up
Mhm.
here. And they would run shows every 3 weeks like clockwork. And I realized afterwards the reason they ran shows every third Sunday was because every third Monday they would go to Brantford, Ontario, which was at that time about an hour and 15-minute drive from the airport in Toronto, and tape television. And then when WWF bought the territory, they would tape Wrestling Challenge from there. And then Tuesdays they would fly to Poughkeepsie to do Superstars. And I would go every show. I had like what the equivalent was of seasons tickets. I went to the office and said, "Hey, look, I come to every show. Is there any way I can get close-up seats?" Because I used to take pictures too. I was one of my hobbies. And they used to have this ramp. I know you see it sometimes depending on venues nowadays with some promotions on TV, a ramp that goes from where the entranceway is
Mhm.
level with the ring. And at
Mhm.
that time, it was unique to Maple Leaf Gardens. But I was sitting second row ringside right beside that ramp every week, and I would take pictures and I'd come back to the next show and sell them. for $2 a
Okay.
pop. So that was kind of fueling my habit. I was paying for my habit by selling these pictures. And being that close, I was getting some pretty good shots.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a place called Direct Film up here in Canada where they would double your prints for $1. So what I would do is I'd get 2 sets of prints. I'd keep one for myself and I'd bring the other set to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone who worked for Jack Tunney by the name of Elio Zarlenga, he comes up to me. I didn't know who he was. And he comes up to me outside Maple Leaf Gardens because I was outside. So I knew enough not to go inside and try and sell them. You know what I mean? And he says, what do you got there? You got some pictures? I said, yeah. He says, can I take a look? I said, sure. He says, are these for sale? I said, yeah. He says, how much are they? I said, no, $2 a picture. He says, you can't do that. And I'm like, why? Like, and he starts reading off the old copyright stuff. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And he says, yeah. And I work for Jack Tunney. I'm the guy who takes the photos for the program and the magazine. And he's going on. And I went, oh no. And in my mind, I'm not thinking I'm going to get in trouble legally. I'm thinking
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to lose my season wrestling tickets,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to getting in trouble with the law. And he says, you don't seem like a bad guy. He says, do me a favor, just don't stand right in front of the building and do it. Like, move down the block a little bit where nobody can see you, because if you're standing right here, they're going to see you, you're going to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I appreciate it. Thank you. And we ended up becoming friends because he'd kind of seek me out every time I would be there. And certain independent shows, he would be there
Mm-hmm.
in the Ontario area. So we'd catch up there as well. And he says, you know what, I'm going to introduce you to Jack. Maybe I could bring you on as an assistant photographer. Help me out. You can be ringside with me. And I'm like, this is cool. Yes. So I met Jack and he said, well, we don't need another photographer. We'll find something for the kid to do. And that's when I got hired on to do, all the
Mm-hmm.
menial stuff. We need this, we need that, help with the ring. And then he'd throw me the keys to his Fleetwood Cadillac, go up to the airport Marriott and pick up Randy Savage and Liz and go pick up Andre and go. And I'm like, yes, sir. But inside I'm going, holy, I'm going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's exciting especially back then, just trying to, just be a part of the industry and just being able to work with those massive stars would
Yeah,
just be intimidating and overwhelming.
it is because, they were larger than life characters. And of course, me being kind of like an outsider, kind of
Hmm.
starting to kind of inch my way in, it was intimidating. It was very intimidating because I didn't know the etiquette. I didn't know
Hmm.
how to conduct myself. Do I venture over here? Is this an area I'm not allowed to step into?
Hmm.
Eventually, obviously those walls broke down, and there was times where I would, be able to be in the locker room and kind of converse, and there was a lot of guys that were very, very kind and treated me very well,
Hmm.
which I very much appreciated. And one of those people was Pat Patterson, who was Vince's right-hand man, and he would come up for a lot of the shows in Canada. Him being from Quebec,
Hmm.
so he's born in Canada, so but also um, kind of keeping an eye on things for Vince at the same time.
Hmm.
And he just said one day, like I wasn't looking to do it, but he said to Jack, he says, you know what, we got the kid over here. He's like waiting around, looking for stuff to do, waiting for us to give him some instructions. He says, why don't we make him a ref? So Pat says to Jack, he says, yeah, but do we want to smarten the kid up? I'm standing right there. He says, do we want to smarten the kid up? And Pat says to him, but Jack, like he's in the locker room, he hangs out with the boys, he kind of has an idea what's going on. Why don't we use him? I mean, he's here.
Hmm.
So he told me to get my black sneakers, black pants, the blue shirt, and the black bow tie and carry it with me all the time and just be ready. That's all he
Hmm.
said, just be ready. And I did. Yep. And I went and did it. And then I didn't realize that while I was waiting to get my opportunity, I should have been asking questions
Hmm.
from the other refs, like,
Yeah.
okay, how do I do this? Because I have no clue what I'm doing.
How, so transitioning into that, how long do you feel like it was before you were comfortable being in that role?
Um, because of the way I am, I was never entirely comfortable, to be honest with you,
Hmm.
until, wow, maybe 12, 15 years in. It, it,
Yeah.
it, it was that process. And when it kind of changed sort of when the lot of the relationships you form with some of the guys,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Now they start to feel more comfortable with you because they're around you more and they get to work with you more and they get to get a feel for how you work
Hmm.
because the good wrestlers will pay attention to the referees and you know utilize them to the best of their ability to make the match better.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when they started getting that comfort factor, and then the first time one of the guys said to me, "Yeah, what do you think, Jimmy?" And I went, "He's asking me what I think." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, all those years, obviously, you know, you're sitting in the room while they're putting a match together and listening to them and listening to why.
Hmm.
Why are we doing this? Let's do this. Yeah, but why are we doing that? We shouldn't do that because this doesn't make sense. How about we do this? And of course, we had the benefit of house shows back then, which they don't really do much anymore, where guys
Yeah.
can try stuff out. And that's where I learned to become more comfortable was on the house shows because I was more relaxed. There wasn't that stress of television.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
can.
So, but it took a while. It did take a while to be comfortable, but still, I was very, very much, you know, and when I got to the back after the match, was everything okay? You know, it
There.
wasn't like, you know, even when somebody would say to you, "Yeah, good job," I said, "Was there anything? Did you see anything?" You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I wasn't, I don't want to say I wasn't comfortable. I just wanted, uh, I put too much pressure on myself. Let's put it
So
that way.
making sure you're doing a good job. Yeah.
I was
I can
trying,
be like that myself. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. How long did you work with Maple Leaf and Jack before the transition to WWE came to be, or how did that relationship start to form?
I started working for the Tunney office in
Hmm.
1985, but they had already been bought out by Vince. So they were just kind of like a satellite office for the WWF at the time,
Hmm.
even though Jack was the promoter of the area of Canada, because like I said, they used to come up every 3 weeks, so they needed that office in Canada. It
Hmm.
helped with everything from paperwork to tax stuff, you know, all that stuff that I don't, you know, way above my pay grade. But
Hmm.
it was very vital. And of course, they used Mr. Tunney as the figurehead president at the time, and a lot of people thought he was the actual president. I mean, you know, which was kind of cool because you want people to believe, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, it 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 was important at the time that they did have a Canadian presence as far as having an office there.
Was there any added pressure when you started working more with the WWE for you personally?
When I started, I was fine when I was feeling more not comfortable, but it was
Hmm.
okay because it was mainly, you know, Ontario, this area, Western New York,
Hmm.
sometimes venture into Michigan if because I was also helping with the ring crew at the time, so. And there were times where if the guy who used to drive the truck couldn't drive the truck, I would drive the ring truck and you know that sort of stuff. And of course, you're doing double duty, you're refereeing on those shows as well. And then one day, Jack Tunney had cataract surgery on his eyes. Now he used to drive to as many TVs as possible because in those days most of the TVs were like New York State, Pennsylvania, like I said, Michigan, and he would like driving to those and he had the cataract surgery done and he just asked me he used to travel with a wrestler by the name of Billy Red Lyons who is a very famous wrestler up here in Canada. He used to do the what Mean Gene did in between
Okay.
the interviews, the back, but he used to do them for the Canadian shows
Okay.
that would air on Canadian television. And he would travel with Jack to these TVs, and he didn't really like the way Red drove. So he said, Jimmy, do you mind driving us to, and in this particular case, I remember it very well. There were TV tapings this is when they stopped doing them in Brantford and
Hmm.
Poughkeepsie specifically, and they started moving them around. He said, they got TV coming up in Lake Placid and Glens Falls, New York. He says, would you be able to drive us there? And, you know, I'll take care of you and also bring your ref gear. I said, yeah, no problem. So I did, and when I got there, they put me to work. They said, "Oh, you're here? You got your ref gear? Sure, yeah, put it on. You're going to work today." So this was my first television, working my first television. And in the third hour of one, I don't, it was Glens Falls, New York, so I don't remember if it was Superstars or Challenge taping. They changed up the lineup and they said, "Oh, Jimmy, we're changing things up. You're going to work a one-man gangs match." And it didn't matter who you were working with because back
Yeah.
then, you know what it was. They were enhancement matches. So,
Mhm.
he's like wrestling Dave Studemeyer or Dusty Wolf or something like that, right? So
Mhm.
he says, get with Gang. He'll tell you what you want to do, what he wants you to do. I said, okay. So I said, Gang, I got your match. And he says, okay. He said, Pat asked me to ask you what to do. He says, okay. I'm going to give the guy my finish, which was the 747. The front face suplex kind of
Mhm.
thing. He says, after the match, raise my hand. I'll push you out of the way. I'll give it to him again. He says, you get in my face. Then I'll hook you and I'll give it to you. Are you okay
Okay.
with that? I said, sure. I mean, like, but I've never done it before. He says, all I need you to do, get your legs straight up as best you can because it looks more impressive. And he says, I've got your head. Don't worry. I'll protect your face and stuff. I said, okay. So we ended up doing it and it was fine. And there's this kind of adrenaline rush you get
Mhm.
where it's not that you don't feel anything, but it didn't matter how hard you land. You're not going to feel
Oh
anything.
yeah.
It's just now it's in my head. Just stay here, don't move. Stay here, don't move. That kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And when I got to the back, first person I ran into was Haku, who was a real super sweet guy. He
Mhm.
says, Jimmy, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm fine. He says, you sure you're okay? I said, yeah, I'm good. He goes, good, good job. And he walked away. Then Pat comes up and Pat says, Jimmy, how do you feel? I said, I feel fine. I said, was it okay? He says, how do you feel though? I said, I feel okay. I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. He says, good. He was fine. And he walked away. And I think that was a little bit of a test.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
see how I would react to the change, how I would react to being put in that situation,
See
having
if
never
we can
taken a
do
bump
some
on
more stuff with
television.
this guy.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah, I think we can work with this kid. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That sort of thing.
Is there any particular moments in those early years with WWE that stand out to you more than others that mean something special to you that you were a part of, or maybe some matches you officiated?
Um, so many. I mean, like the first one actually was the scary one because I got just out of the blue. They asked me, Chief J Strongbow asked me if I had my ref gear with me. I said yes. He says put it on. You're refing tonight, and I'm like okay.
Mm.
Which what am I supposed to say? No, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? He says you're going to referee SD Jones versus Red Demon, who Jose Luis Rivera. He says get with them. They'll tell you what to do. And I went and asked SD, who was a good friend at the time. I said, SD, I got some good news and bad news. He says, well, what's the good news? I said, I'm reffing your match tonight. He says, cool. He says, what's the bad news? I said, I'm reffing your match tonight. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. So he said, just stay close to me and I'll talk you through it, which he did, but you know, it probably didn't go well on my end. Thankfully, there's no video evidence of it. But man, I've been blessed with a lot of great men. I mean, getting to referee a match with in Toronto's Maple Leaf Gardens, Hulk Hogan and Mr. Perfect.
Hmm.
Very early too. At the time, I was thinking, why am I assigned this match? Maybe this is a little too soon for. Even then, I was thinking it's the coolest thing ever, but at the same time, am I ready for something like this? And again, maybe it was a test
Oh yeah.
to see
Hmm.
how I would handle it because it was a house show. The only difference was though, like some of the garden shows and so like some of the Boston garden shows, they would record the shows at Maple Leaf Gardens and they would be um, see up here they aired WWF at the time, two shows on a Saturday. They did an afternoon show on TV, which was their regular um, like whatever Superstars version. Then they would air one at 7 p.m. at night that would feature a match from Maple Leaf Gardens. Do you know that sort of thing? So,
Oh yeah.
you know, but stuff like that. I mean, I got to do a Harlem street fight between Randy Macho Man Savage and Bad News Brown, where I got put through a table.
How was that experience for you?
Again, it was one of those situations where I thought, okay, going through a table, and contrary to popular opinion, no, it was not gimmicked. It was one of those regular tables.
Hmm.
But and again, I went through, and it was like, it sounds crazy to say, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, you know what I mean? And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, once again, it's like, okay, I'm gonna lay here until they come get me, until somebody, you know, oh man, I was blessed with a lot of getting to work with Andre the Giant, you
Like
know.
how, like you were a part of so many different eras and so much different talent. You got to see like how WWE evolved into what it is today because you went
Hmm.
through, the good times, the bad times, the different, like I said, the golden era, the the new generation, the attitude era,
Yeah,
ruthless
ruthless
aggression.
aggression.
Hmm.
Yeah,
You even did not go on strike that one time, and like you've been a part of so many like matches and memories. It's what a roller coaster of what a life to live.
I know. I know. I to this day, I, I am so thankful for and understand how blessed I was to do something that I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And you mentioned the strike thing, which was actually not the original plan.
Okay.
That that happened by sheer coincidence because I had just gotten married.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trying to get some time off for a honeymoon is next to impossible. But JR
Impossible.
was in charge. JR was in charge of talent relations at the time, so I went to him and I said, you know, I'm getting married in September, early September. Is it? Can I get like 2 weeks off for honeymoon? And you know, JR, yeah, pal, are you sure that's enough? I said, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to stay away too long because you know what I mean. It's
Mm-hmm.
so he says, yeah, that's fine, no problem. JR was great, and then they ran that strike angle while I was away. They hadn't started it yet, so I didn't know it was coming. And I didn't watch any wrestling while I was on my honeymoon because I wanted to stay married. So, so when I get back, all of a sudden everybody's filling me in on the strike thing, and everybody's here. Yeah, we're on strike. All we do is we stand outside with picket signs and we're walking around. I said, yeah, I guess I can handle that. And then I run into Hunter in the locker room, and he says, he used to call me Corduroy. He said, "Hey, Corduroy, welcome back. How was the honeymoon?" I said, "It was great." He says, "Too bad you come back and you're out of a job. Ha ha ha." And I said, "Well, you know what, Hunter? I can't afford to go on strike. I just got married." And he started laughing and he went, "Oh wait, follow me." And I went, "Okay, what? Have I got heat now? What's going on here?" So he took me. He says, "Jr." says Corderas has a great idea. And I'm thinking, "I do? What idea?" He says he'll be the only guy, the regular referee that doesn't go on strike. He'll be crossing the picket line. He'll be a scab, and then we'll work it out where, you know, down the road. And I'm like, okay. So it was just an offhanded comment that sparked an idea, and it was like, okay, yeah, whatever you want to do. I just don't want to end up like Danny Davis and have to be in the ring because
Yeah.
I didn't. I knew I couldn't wrestle.
Is there any particular era that you enjoyed most being part of?
Oh my, man, it's tough. I know people glorify the Attitude Era, but there were some aspects of the Attitude Era where I look back and I think to myself, I can't believe we did that.
Hmm.
You know, it's a little. You talk about over the top. That was a little over the top. I think for me, you know, because I was blessed to start in an era like the Golden Era with the Hulk Hogan's and the Andres and the Warriors and the Savage and the Steamboat and Tito and you know, there's so many great
Hmm.
guys then, and they're the ones who actually set the foundation for what we have today. That being said, I think the era that we had, where we had the John Cena's and the Stone Cold and The Rock,
Hmm.
and we had Eddie Guerrero, we had Rey Mysterio, we had Randy Orton, we had Batista, we had. When you think about Mark Henry, then Brock Lesnar shows up, and we got how could I forget the Undertaker, the leader of our locker room? You know, that era for me stands out for me personally because um, that was at a time in my career where it's when I felt the most that I belonged.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I felt like part of the crew as opposed to, oh, he's the referee. I felt welcomed in. The era of the TLC matches is inventive and crazy as they were. I felt uh, part of the group, part of the gang.
How big of a headache was it to be a part of something like that? Like,
It's
how do you even you're like, I'll do what I can.
Yeah, obviously people know that the referees are responsible for communicating from the
Hmm.
gorilla position to the talent as discreetly as possible. It's difficult when you're standing outside the ring and all that chaos is going on inside the ring. But that being said, the TLC match, your primary duty is not just to relay times and messages, but also to make sure that after you see something crazy, like one of those really high risk bumps that they take, is to
Hmm.
make sure that everybody's okay. But the toughest thing too is to judge because those guys are never going to tell you, no, I'm not okay.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not in
Especially,
the time, yeah.
no, no, nobody's going to say, no, I don't think I'm good. They're going to say, yeah, I'm good to go. I'm good to go. So you got to kind of also keep an eye on things. Just, there's little signs you can see, whether it's, look in their eyes. You know, there's a little thing everybody knows about the hand squeeze, right?
Hmm.
Where you do a little hand squeeze. There's a reason why they do that. Because if your wits are about you, when you squeeze the hand, you'll know enough to squeeze back because they know they're supposed to squeeze back. If they're
Hmm.
if they're not there and they don't realize enough to squeeze back. You do know what I mean? That's why it's
Yeah.
done. That's why it's done. That's a small little thing, but you can tell by a glassy look in somebody's eyes. But that also comes with experience too. You have to, yeah, learn to recognize those things. You can't just walk in there and just say, "Oh yeah, I know somebody's got their bell rung." You know. But
uh,
safety first automatically in those matches. And if Bubba Dudley's in the match, do not hold the ladder for him.
while you were on the main roster, how was it like bringing in new referees? How was that process? Like we mentioned a little bit about Jason and FCW. Were you a part of when they would hold those camps, or was that your only one, or how was that process and feedback? How did all that work out?
I was a couple of them. I went down to Florida for a couple of them. I remember that one specifically because Jason was in it.
Hmm.
Rod Zapata was in it. I'm pretty sure Sean Bennett was in it as well. So there's three guys right there that were like, okay, you know,
Hmm.
that are on the main roster still to this day. But as far as bringing in new referees, once they had absorbed WCW
Hmm.
and they brought those referees over as well, there wasn't an immediate need.
Hmm.
So it wasn't till late, till like 2007, 2008, where now they were starting to think for the future that we're going to, these guys are getting a little bit older. We're going to have
Hmm.
to start looking towards the future. And that's when you get your guys like John Cohn, who is also an excellent referee, and others. And some guys work out and some guys don't. It's like wrestlers.
Hmm.
Referees in that sense are kind of like wrestlers. You come in and you do your best, and just some guys just don't work out. And it's not that they're bad or anything. It's just they don't work out for whatever reason there is. But again, back to your question, I did go down for a couple of camps and sat with Steve Kern mostly, who was running FCW at the time, and just evaluate the guys trying out.
That's so cool to see how wrestling was and to see how it is now and how all that process is now and how all these people try out and it's not just somebody and being a referee is not an easy job by any means and growing seeing how like with Jason and how much he had to struggle and go through just to get where he's at
Mhm.
That position, I think, is often overlooked, but it's not easy. It's
No,
very hard. And, I have a lot of respect for people like yourself and everyone that did that role for so many years.
no, thank you. I think a lot of fans think they know
Hmm.
what goes into being a referee. I don't think they really understand how involved it is. And I think when you watch a show like Unreal that they're
Hmm.
showing now on Netflix, and they're showing now how the communication works between Gorilla and the referees in the ring, and how, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
They're giving you a little glimpse. It's not an entire picture. Trust me, it's not. There's so much more that goes. I mean, you have to be there when the match is being put together so you understand what's going on. And there's a lot of people out there and some veterans who say, well, we don't like to give the referees everything that's going on in the match because we
Hmm.
want them to react naturally. We want them authentically to make it look authentic. And even times they say, well, we're not going to give them the finish. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, I think I'm okay with not with
Hmm.
trying to make it look as authentic as possible, even though I know the finish. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I've gotten to that point in my career where I think I can do that. So you don't have to kayfabe me, brother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But but it is so much more because the struggle for referees is your job is to help the guys tell their
Hmm.
story with and also be as invisible as possible until you need to be seen. And and you have to be that conduit that helps, the communication factor and make it look like, you're doing it in the process of doing your job without making it look overtly like you're walking over and saying, "Hey, we got 4 minutes, we got to go." you
Hmm.
know, it has to look like you're either checking on someone who took a big bump and it looks like you're checking on to see if he's okay. And you could even verbally say it because the cameras are so close. Hey, are
Hmm.
you okay? And then as you get in closer, you can tell them, yeah, we got 4 minutes, we got to go. You know what I mean? So it
Hmm.
looks like you're checking on them, whether they're in a hold. I call it a rest hold. I hate it. They're in a hold. No, I hate
Hmm.
calling it a rest hold. I know technically at times it's what it is, but a rear chin lock, you can lean in and slide your hand under to make sure it's not a choke. And while you're doing that, you can discreetly pass a message there,
Hmm.
But there's a lot more involved. And sometimes even referees present ideas. Once you get to a certain point, like I said, it took me a while before I was comfortable doing so, where you can present ideas and it's how you present it too. It's like don't pop up, hey, I got a great idea. It's like if the guys are going over something and you say, hey guys, I don't mean to interrupt. Do you mind if I suggest something?
Hmm.
And they're very receptive. Like you cool if they think it's a good idea. Yeah, let's try it. But if it's not, then I don't think this will work in this circumstance. Okay, that's cool. No worries. You
Hmm.
know, but again, that's one of the beauties of having house shows, though,
Yeah, that's true.
is those ideas you can try them out. Oh, say, okay, we'll try it today, and if it works, cool. If it doesn't work,
If you had any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
uh, go in with an open mind and an attitude where you want to learn. Be an open book. Be a sponge.
Hmm.
Don't think you're walking in there knowing what's going on because trust me, you don't know the half of it. And even if you know the half of it, that's more than most people know. It is. It's a different world until you've actually experienced. It's like any sport. It's like you think you know what it's like to play football, but until you step on that field, you put your cleats on, you put the helmet on, you put your shoulder pads on. When you go out there, it's a different world. You
Hmm.
know, um,
100%.
like in high school, I played basketball in high school, and like for high school, I was okay. I mean, like I'm not
Hmm.
gonna say I was great, but for high school, I was okay. 5'10" uh, guard that could actually dunk, believe it or not. Yeah, I was athletic when I was younger. Right now, forget about it. Don't even try. But you know what I mean? But
Hmm.
I didn't for a minute think that I would be able to transition into the NBA.
Hmm.
I knew my limits. I knew that also there are parts of basketball. and how to set up a play that is completely different at a different level. At a high school level, it's like, you run a screen, no big deal, it's very, very, very rudimentary,
Hmm.
until you get to an elite level where then it becomes, they start teaching you different stuff. It's like the same with wrestling. You see on television, you think, you know, I equate it to this. I keep rambling. Sorry to ramble so much, Brian.
You're
Um,
good.
but I'm a big fan of police dramas. Like I was a huge fan of Blue Bloods. I thought that
Hmm.
was a brilliant show. And I'm also a fan of certain doctor dramas, on
Hmm.
television. Like House was one of my favorites back when. I watch those and I get an idea, but I don't for the life of me think I can go practice law or perform surgery on anybody.
That's
Yeah.
Where can people reach out to you at?
Oh, you can reach out to me on Twitter if you dare. At Jimmy Corderis, where I do my ref and rants and my daily ref and rants, which I have a little fun with.
Hmm.
It's just an opinion, is all it is. And I think people take some opinions too seriously, and I it might be a little critique, it might be something regarding the news of the day, but it's just an opinion piece, and it's a short
Hmm.
one. It's usually like a minute and a half or so, so no big deal. Instagram at real Jimmy Corderis, Facebook and all those places. I'm also a part of two podcasts, one with my good brothers in stripes, Brian Hebner, and current TNA lead official Daniel Spencer, called Reffing It Up. I have to give a shout out to our producer, RJ, because without the producer pushing the buttons, we have no clue what we're doing. So got to give a shout out to him. We have a lot of fun with that one, just talking. I think it's unique because I don't know of any other podcasts out there. I know Mikey Kyoto has one with that he does every, I think, once a month, but we're weekly, usually drop on Wednesdays, and it's three officials from different eras.
Yeah.
Like you've got the old fart, me, and then you got the medium fart, who's Brian, and then you got a current official in Daniel. So I think it's a very unique podcast. And I also do a podcast called Huge Pop with my good buddy Donnie De Silva. And again, shout out to our producer Lincoln Allen, who's also an independent wrestler up here in the Ontario region. Really smart dude, really well spoken, really articulate. We have a lot of fun with that one, and we have some interesting guests on every once in a while. So I implore you to check those out. You can go to hugepopradio.com and find all the episodes there. And that's pretty much it. So I'm supposed to be retired, but
How's
I
that
got to
working
keep
out?
you got to keep busy doing something other than shoveling
Hmm.
snow. You know what I
That's
mean?
true. Yeah. Is there any particular moment that you're most proud of during your whole career, or something that truly means something to you personally?
Um, uh, there are many moments that I'm very proud of, but I think the biggest one has to be uh, being personally asked to referee the match for Edge and The Undertaker at WrestleMania 24. Um, for Because I wasn't originally scheduled for that match, and you know it does happen where referees will politic themselves into certain matches. I was fine with whatever. You know what I mean? I was one of those
Hmm.
guys that I felt comfortable with whatever match they gave me. I am perfectly fine with it. But Edge came up to me about a week or two before WrestleMania, and he says, "I got to talk to you." He says, "Taker and I were talking, and we'd like to have you to referee our match." I said, um, "That would be an honor, but uh, I'm not in
Hmm.
charge of the schedule." He says, "Don't worry. I think the dead man can get it done." And for me, uh, you know, having them showing that confidence in me, and
Hmm.
wanting me to be a part of that, because I had a conversation with the Undertaker afterwards. I said, he says he said, "Did Edge talk to you?" And I said, "Yes, he did." He says, "Are you cool with that?" And I'm thinking, why is he asking me if I'm cool with this? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I said, "Yeah." I said, I just want to make sure everything is right, and I'm there for you guys, and I do my job properly for you and Adam. And he
Hmm.
says, and when he said, "Oh, we know you will," it was kind of like this. I wanted, they say no crying in wrestling.
Hmm.
I was ready to break down. And I will be honest, after the match, I did. I did. It was like if my refereeing career would have ended that night, I would have been perfectly fine with it. It was like it was one of those moments where it couldn't get much better than that.
And rightfully so. That was an amazing main event. How was it officiating in that Florida Heat, though?
Yeah, I didn't even notice it. I will tell you this. I have watched it back, and I was a little heavier back then. I was sweating up a little bit. And those blue SmackDown referee shirts
Hmm.
were actually thicker than the black and white stripes. They were they were almost a little bit like a short sleeve sweatshirt. Yeah, so I did feel the heat. But again, I was so focused on
Hmm.
doing my job, I wasn't paying attention to the heat. I, it was weird because I almost couldn't hear the fans
Hmm.
because I was so focused. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like when I personally go to events and stuff, there's certain things that like the smells, the sounds, I feel like I can like focus in on what I need or what I'm wanting to focus in on, and I can everything else just like is just background noise but very minimal.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
Very much. It's not like they're completely silent. Obviously, when
Hmm.
you got like whatever it is, I don't know, 60, 70,000 people in there and they're making noise, you do hear it, but it's like background noise.
Hmm.
Like it's not specific where guys in Gorilla will be listening and they're going, "Oh, did you hear that pop?"
Hmm.
Not so much for me. It was like, okay, I'm moving on to the next what I need to be
Hmm.
concerned about. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Well, Mr. Corderas, I just want to say thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling. Thank you for what you continue to do. Thank you for taking the time out and coming on this show today to talk a little bit about your career. It truly means a lot to me personally.
Well, I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you very much. Very nice of you to say. It means a lot hearing that, especially all these years later, because
Hmm.
I have been away from WWE since 2009. And if you think about it, I'm like, wow, it's coming up on 17 years now.
Hmm.
And the fact that people still remember it, it, it's special. I mean, it really is. It feels amazing. And I thank you for the kind words. And it was a
I,
pleasure being here, man. I appreciate it. And when you talk to Jason, tell
mhm.
him keep up the good work, man. I do too. We keep in contact. We do.
I will do that, and thank you again. I truly appreciate your time, and if there's ever anything that I could ever do, please feel free to reach out.
I will for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.